the stage to talk about his survivorship.
Good morning, everyone. It's so awesome to be here with you today. Thank you so much for coming out. You know, when we come out at events such as this, we're able to directly assist the American Cancer Society with its beautiful mission to save lives, to celebrate life, and to continue on with the fight to a world without cancer. And that should be a critical mission for all of us, because the scary statistics remain that 1 out of every 3 women and 1 out of every 2 men will be diagnosed with some form of cancer at some point in their life. So thank you so much for helping out today. And just this year, the American Cancer Society released statistics indicating that on 1.7 million occasions, a doctor will give a patient the dreaded news that you have cancer. Over 600,000 people will lose their lives to this terrible disease this year, and that equals 1,660 people every single day in our country that will die of this dreaded disease. So thank you so much for your advocacy, for your support, and of course for your fundraising that allows the American Cancer Society to continue on with its critical research, crucial patient care programs, and education and prevention information. And I've attended a lot of these events through the years. I'm fortunate that my wife, who's right over there, works for the American Cancer Society, and also I have to say hello to my 6-year-old Kai. But when my family and I attend these events now, they take on a particularly different meaning, because I not only stand before you as a continued fighter in the war against cancer, but I now stand before you as someone who has heard those words, "You have stage 4 cancer." Someone who has fought for my life against cancer on the battlefields of surgery and radiation and chemotherapy, and now someone who humbly and so thankful to God stands before you in remission 1 year and 8 months. My journey into the cancer world started one regular morning in July of 2017 when I was shaving, and I felt a little knot on the left side of my throat. I didn't think too much about it because I felt fine. I was working out 6 times a week and living a pretty healthy lifestyle, but because those people who know me know I'm a germaphobe and a hypochondriac, thank goodness for those traits, because I immediately went to the doctor because I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Well, it wasn't. And within about 2 weeks, after a series of examinations and biopsies and studies, I was told that I had stage 4 squamous cell cancer of the throat. And it was obviously devastating news. You know, I didn't understand how that happened. It just came out of the blue. You know, we're just living our life, and then one day, your life changes forever. But thank goodness I went in, because that little knot that I felt was actually the cancer that had spread to my lymph nodes. It had started in my head and my neck area, and had I not gone in, I would not be here today. So if you ever notice a lump or anything that's unusual about your body, even if you feel okay, please go to the doctor. It just might be the decision to save your life, as it did mine. So after I was diagnosed, the first thing that they did was they went in surgery and removed my tonsils, small parts of my tongue and my throat. And then I underwent 7 weeks of high intensity radiation, 5 times a week, to my head and my throat areas. So 35 sessions in total. And while I was going through that, they found a second cancer that was on my face, and it was a weird strain. So once I finished that first treatment, I had to go through another 3 weeks of radiation, bringing the total to 50 radiation treatments to my head. And at the same time I received chemotherapy. In the treatment world, my chemo was known as a super chemo, cisplatin, 8-hour doses in the beginning, the middle, and at the end. And at the end of that journey, my body was absolutely devastated from the combined effects of the radiation and the chemo. I had unbelievable fatigue, crazy nausea, just intense pain despite being on the most heavy pain medications. Lost my sense of taste. I developed dry mouth because many of my salivary glands were obliterated during that process. And I had so many sores, open sores that developed in my throat and my mouth and my tongue, that eventually it became too painful to swallow my own spit. So what kept me alive for several months was a surgery that I had to put a feeding tube into my stomach. And that's how I got my nutrients, in addition to infusions in the hospital. And at the end of that, I had lost 75 pounds. My body was absolutely just emaciated, and I was in the hospital for a little while. But when I came home, it was that pivotal moment. And for you in the purple shirts, all of us have that moment at some point in your journey, and it can either go dark or it can go light. And mine was when I got home from the hospital. And for anyone who's ever been in the hospital for a while, you know there's just something about that first shower when you get home. And so the water was warming up, and I've got this mental picture that's still in my head today of my body at that point. And that was it for me, that pivotal moment, because I saw my bones. I was so pale. The tube was hanging out of my stomach, and I thought, well, what's the point? I just, I was hurting so bad. I just didn't understand, why I had done that. And then very quickly, thank God, my mind went to the funeral of a friend the year earlier who had passed away from cancer and left a husband and 3 beautiful children. I thought about my mother-in-law, who at the same time I was fighting was dealing with a terminal diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, which she eventually lost. And then I thought about so many of my fellow brothers and sisters who didn't have that second chance that I was given. And then my journey changed. It became about not feeling sorry for myself. It was being thankful that I was still alive. I had survived that brutal journey. And then I turned everything around to make it about just getting through each day and trying to get better. And that hurt like hell. That was crazy. But, just getting through the day, being thankful to still be alive, and praying that somehow, some way tomorrow would be better. And then eventually it did. I started to get better and better and better. And now here I am today. And of course, anyone who ever goes through cancer, you're always going to have a change as we settle into our new normal. It changes you physically, spiritually, emotionally. And I have side effects that are with me here today. They're going to be with me the rest of my life. They're affecting me right now as I talk to you. But it's not about, in the bigger picture, what cancer took away from me that counts. What matters is what I do with my life with what I have left. And I have a heck of a lot left to give. And one of the things I love doing is I love being a part of this community, the survivor community, 15.5 million strong in America alone, to try to give back like so many others gave to me during my struggle, to provide that hope and that encouragement. I wear this bracelet every single day, and I will the rest of my life, that says no one fights alone. Because even though I got through my storm, there's so many here today that are still in theirs. And it's about coming together like all of you beautiful people are doing today, because we are in this together. And also, I have a tremendous opportunity for advocacy with my cancer, because my cancer was actually caused by a virus, HPV, the human papilloma virus. You're probably hearing stuff about that. Some of you probably already heard about that, but there's a lot of commercials coming out. The American Cancer Society has its national vaccination campaign to hopefully get rid of HPV cancers. And so if you don't know much about HPV, the CDC estimates that 80% of all Americans will be exposed to that virus at some point during their life, and a lot of researchers are pushing that up to as high as 90%. 14 million new infections of HPV happen in this country every single year, with a majority of those infections between the ages of 15 and 24. And on any given day in our country, there's 79 million Americans walking around with the HPV virus. It is so prevalent that basically you're going to fall into one of 3 categories. You either have had it and your body killed it off and you didn't know it, or if you're like me, it turned into cancer. You don't have it yet, but you will, or you have it right now and you don't know. For females, it's very important that you continue to go to your doctor for your regular checkups, because actually in some certain situations they can detect HPV in you and give you treatments. But for males, there is no medically approved test to see if you have HPV or not. You don't know you have it until it turns into cancer, or hopefully it just goes away on its own. And that virus can lie dormant in your body for 20 to 30 years before it turns into something ugly like cancer. So for adults, it's pretty much about early detection, eliminating risk factors, and doing everything you can to try to live a healthy lifestyle. But the beautiful, wonderful news is for our youth of tomorrow, we have the opportunity through the HPV vaccine to hopefully protect them from that virus. That vaccine deals with 9 of the deadliest strains of the HPV virus. And there are 6 cancers that can be caused by that virus, the most common of which is cervical cancer, which HPV causes over 90% of those cancers. The target age for children is 11 to 12 years old for the vaccine. That's important because their immune system is best equipped to handle it at that age. They only have to get 2 shots. And the older you are at the time of vaccination, the less effective that vaccine is. And here's the key. If you remember anything else when you leave today, if you hear people talking about, well, I can just kick that decision down the road till they're old or anything like that, please remember this. It's about exposure. Because hopefully at that age, children are not engaging in any activity that can cause the HPV virus or expose them to that. So, because once you are exposed to the HPV virus, the particular strain that can cause you cancer, if you've already been exposed, the vaccine will no longer work. So please, when you leave here today, if you have kids, people have kids, spread the word. It's about awareness. And then finally, before we break, to celebrate and to gather together with all of our teams, I want to give a special shout out to Bernie from our office, who's here. She's in her fight against cancer. And we have our own team. team with our national law firm Clark Hill, our San Diego office, here for her. And the way that she is living her life is just incredibly moving, with such hope and positivity. And it's really, truly motivating, Bernie. And it personifies what my head and neck surgeon told me when I was trying to adjust back to life and fit into that new normal after that brutal struggle. And I said, how do you do it? I mean, with everything that you see every day. And he said, you're right. I see the most tragic things happen to the most beautiful people. But what I do at the end of the day is, knowing that those things could happen to me, I go home, I take inventory of how I feel, I look at my family, I look at my kids, and I say two words: not today. And that is such a beautiful mentality, because no matter whether it's cancer or anything else in your life, all those crazy things that can be scary, not today. You're in this moment. And whatever that challenge is that you have, the more you focus on it, the more you zero in on it, eventually it becomes the only thing that you see. But if you push that challenge back, no matter what storm you're in, and it's in its proper perspective, you can still see all the beautiful, amazing blessings you have in your life every single day, no matter how difficult, no matter how challenging that storm is. So I pray for you that you'll leave here today and that you will never, ever again have just another ordinary day. Instead, because of the appreciation that you have for this life and all the people around you that love you and the blessings that you have, that you will only have extraordinary days from here on out. Thank you so much for listening. May God bless you on your continued journey. Thank you.